The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
Politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice.
Everything you read in the mainstream media is 100% true.
All right, welcome back to Chopper Prophets, everybody. I'm Mike, I'm your host, and tonight I am joined by the TJ Stiles from TJBrutal Customs.
That's correct.
And you can check his site out and all his work at TJBrutalCustoms.com. He also has a store there. You can purchase gear and goods. And yeah, so we're going to find out a little bit about TJ because TJ, it's a little known fact, but I actually attended it and I really enjoyed it. TJ threw a show, what was it, a year ago?
Yeah, 2013.
Called Get to the Choppers, and I thought it was pretty awesome because it was local, it was free, there was a bunch of vendors there, people that I knew, people that I didn't know, so it was a really great opportunity to get to know some people, and they were giving away an awesome bike that TJ built, and some people donated some work to that as well. So, and we'll hear a little bit about that. So, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I didn't even give you a chance to say hello.
Thanks for having me out.
Hey man, it's my pleasure. I was actually wanting to do this probably last season. I was thinking, I knew what you were doing. I was watching your stuff. Instagram was the first place I saw you. Oh,
cool, yeah.
And then when I went to Get to the Choppers, I thought, okay, I need to have him on the show. Because
that's awesome.
You're doing something, I don't want to say unique, but you are doing something unique. I'm going to say that.
It totally is. When I started doing it, nobody was doing it.
Right.
And everyone told me that stuff's gay. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to change it. I'm going to change the world.
You're like, you're just homophobic because these bikes are awesome.
Super awesome. Like on SS, people go, why do you have SS bolts on your vest? I'm like, it stands for super silly.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what TJ is doing is in the world of dominated by Harley bikes and choppers and bobbers and triumphs and whatever other term you want to throw around, cafes. Let's not forget cafes. TJ set about to build really awesome, mostly Honda Shadows, right?
Primarily 600 and 750s, yeah.
And as I didn't know this, but as I started kind of looking into it, you can pick those bikes up pretty inexpensively, used, maybe not brand new, and you can do a lot with them.
They stopped making the 600 in 2008, which was the only mid-size that Honda offered, chain drive, and now all their stuff is like shaft drive and. Yeah. Sucks.
My poor shaft-driven little Yamaha over there. Don't you worry, honey. So TJ's been building out these bikes, and like I said, if you haven't seen them, go to Instagram and follow. It's at TJBrutal Customs.
Yep, very simple.
Very simple. I like simple.
Yep, I do too.
and also TJBrutalCustoms.com, and you can look at his gallery and some of the stuff that you've built.
And I started taking customer submissions too. So like if customers have bought some of my parts and put them on their bike, I'm encouraging people to email those to me so I can put them up on the website. Right on. I mean, who doesn't want to put their bike on a website? You know? So, I mean, it's not like there's a whole bio or anything, but just send me your pictures and I'll put it on the website, and that way people can go there and see a bunch of different builds and how other people have interpreted, the art of the chopper. So.
Right. Well, and I think that's what you said is something important to kind of address and talk about. We don't have to, talk it out, but it's important that, if we take the whole chopper thing back, I don't know, maybe to the 60s, 70s, there was a time when Honda was really kind of coming in and they were saying, you meet the nicest people on Honda, right? And maybe not everybody could afford a Harley at the time, or maybe they just didn't know where to pick one up. I don't know. But there were Honda choppers.
Oh yeah. And they were destroying Harley. What do you think AMF was? The dark ages for Harley, because the metrics came in and blew everyone away. And still today, even on like the tracks, like you talk to any of the like guys who do Harleys today, the guys who are building race bikes, or and doing the flat tracks or the dirt tracks, you ask any of them, they'll say, "Oh yeah, the metrics are still kicking Harley's butt."
Right.
You have to do a lot to a Harley.
Right.
To make it fast. And even then, well, with any bike, pretty much, you can either have really fast or really reliable. You really can't have both. Yeah. When it comes to like Harleys or British bikes, however, metrics, that rule kind of goes out the window. You can have a really freaking fast and really reliable bike.
Right.
You know, you're probably going to end up with a crotch rocket, but
sure,
you know, you can actually bridge that gap. Whereas with a Harley, it's a lot harder to do. It takes a lot more work and effort, but a lot of people really enjoy that. That's I think part of the draw for like, why the hell would you build an old knucklehead? It's a piece of crap.
Right.
It was engineered when they didn't have computers doing everything, so nothing was perfect.
Right.
So everything leaks, all the seals are uneven, you know, and oh, this is 10 thousandths off, this is 17 thousandths off there, you know.
Yeah.
Everything's all cattywampus, and but part of that I think is the draw there is rediscovering that engine and figuring out its personality and what it needs, and nursing it along, you know, and trying, and what a triumph of man. I made this ancient pile of crap run, and I rode it all the way to Mexico. You know, it's kind of something cool to say, you know.
Right.
I mean, that's never been my big thing, but I do enjoy working on old metrics. They're kind of fun. They're pretty formulaic now for me. I mean, it's someone throws one at me and I go, okay, A, B, and C. That'll make it work.
Yeah.
But with the Honda Shadows, what I really like is the fact that the engineering is second to none. Honda, ever since before Pearl Harbor, they have been making really good stuff. They actually made the piston rings that went in the Toyota engines in the Kamikaze planes.
Huh.
So, yes. Actually, something I would like to bring up is the fact that people always... I don't think there's a whole lot of information out there about how metrics came to be such a big powerhouse in today's motorcycle industry. So, when we dropped bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, there was something called the Potsdam Convention. And there were terms that had to be signed by a representative of Japan. And those terms stated they can no longer possess the means to create a warhorse. They can no longer upkeep the machinery, the factories, to create a war machine to attack America ever again. Or for a certain period of time. So they have all this stuff, and all these people have all this knowledge of how to build planes and motors and tanks and things. They can't do anything with it. So what do? Eventually they came out with a Honda Civic, which will run 400,000 miles and never die. So that's basically what happened. Was they had to start building motorcycles, and Honda started making their motorcycles called the Bada Bada, which is the first one. Eventually became the Honda Dream. But they were originally made out of field radio generators.
Interesting.
They had generators for the radios in the field. And they had this surplus. So Soichiro Honda bought a surplus of 500 of them. And in a 12x15 shop with 10 guys, they produced Honda's first, like, quote-unquote production motorcycle.
That's awesome.
So from there, I mean, there's some really, it's a really cool story if you ever want to read about, like, how Honda came up. But he originally started making piston rings for the Toyota airplane motors. And Toyota originally made the Kamikaze motor. So
I did not know that at all. I wouldn't guarantee it, but I would guess that probably a majority of the people listening to the podcast and this webcast did not know that either.
It's pretty cool. And then the water cooling aspect of their bikes, like, that is... I mean, my bike has at least 400,000 miles on it. It's a Honda Shadow 2006 VT600. And I ride it like my balls are on fire. I'm trying to put them out. In the words of one of my friends, he's like, dude, you chill out. I can't follow you. But there's that. There's a lot of double redundant systems they put on their bikes to ensure the bike is a good quality bike and it's going to last. You know, their cylinders aren't in line. A lot of Harley cylinders, I think all of them are actually in line. They're right behind each other. So despite the fact you have cooling fins, this cylinder never gets less than 150 degrees of heat. All the time. When you're riding, you're sitting, now it's just baking in its own heat. But Honda offset the cylinders. So the rear cylinder gets a little more love because the front cylinder has exhaust coming out and the cylinder's making heat. So let's push it out to the side so it gets a little more fresh air. So, I mean, the engineering is amazing.
There's that, and I've also heard, I've also heard that with Harley, and I ride a Harley, that's no secret. I know lots of people that do. But with Harleys, that it's not the most efficient engine.
No.
It's especially on wear and tear. Like the way that it's a 45, right? It's a twin, and the way that it's angled, it's something to do with and I'm just a novice when it comes to this. Like, you don't take my word for it. Go research it if you really want to know. I'm just putting it out there as something to think about. Mm-hmm. I love Harley. I'll continue to ride Harley. It's just my preference.
Yeah, of course.
But I do love all motorcycles. Like, I've ridden. My first bike was a '87 VFR Honda 750. It was before the R's, so this was. Yep. It's just a big old bike. It was awesome though. I loved it. That was my first bike I bought. The first one I ever rode was a Honda Trail 70.
I used to own one.
I loved them. They're still rad. I would love to have one now.
They're super fun. They're very whimsical looking.
Yes.
It's like
very fun to ride. Someone
was inspired by a hairdryer and then built this.
I wonder what leftover part was used
right?
to build the Honda 70. But I have heard that the design of the Harley motor is not efficient in that it's not built to last for hundreds of thousands of miles.
Oil cool. What?
Yeah.
When was the last time you put a cup of oil on a table and it cooled off quickly in the air? It really doesn't. And I want to be clear that I don't hate Harleys. I have nothing against them, but I just feel that a lot of metric bikes have superior engineering. Yeah. And it's not that if you ride a Harley you're an idiot or you have poor taste. It's like a box of crayons. Someone likes the orange ones. Someone likes the blue ones.
Right. But the blue ones are more efficient.
No, I'm kidding. It's still a freaking crayon, Like right. We all enjoy it, and I mean, everybody has a reason they like a Harley,
Right.
But that's really when I first got the bike. I bought it in Oregon. Okay. I actually hated motorcycles. I really did. I told my brother he was going to die. And he's like, no, dude, you got to ride my bike. It's called an Intruder. It's a 1400cc bike. It's amazing. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, it's like riding a pirate ship. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll ride the damn thing. Just so you shut the hell up.
It's like riding a pirate ship.
Yeah, right? He's like, you got to do it. It's so badass. Your balls just get huge. All right, okay. So I rode it and I was gone for like an hour.
Yeah. You were sailing the seas.
I was sailing the seven seas, pillaging, man. It was great. So awesome. I went down to the Honda dealership and they had the 2006 model had just come out, and it's like, they released the 2006 model like 8 months before 2006, and they're like, yeah, but we it's got a ding on the tank here, it's a little scratch or something, so we'll sell it for cheap. And I was like, okay, cool, let's put some money down. And it started pissing rain, and so I had to ride the bike home in the rain for the first time I ever rode. And it did not stop raining for 2 months till I left Oregon. So,
did that play into your decision to leave Oregon?
It always has. Nice. So I didn't like the way it looked. It was ugly. It was too shiny, too pretty for me. And I've always been kind of if it's broken, try and fix it. Worst that happens is it's still broken. Yeah. It's been my philosophy forever. And
right.
So I started pulling it apart, and I was like, how can I make this thing not sound like a dry fart in the wind? Right. Because it did. I will be honest, it did. Yes. Only a little bit more reverb, just a touch. Yeah. So I started cutting it up, and then I met Clint Case from Bruiser Custom Cycles, and he showed me how to weld, and I put a solo seat on the bike, hacked the fender off. I was like, well, do I really need this? Nope, we don't need those. Those are blinkers. There's no. And he convinced me. He's like, what do you need a speedometer for? And I'm like, so I can see how fast I'm going, you dildo. Like, come on, man. And he's like,
I was thinking you were going to say, I can know how many miles I'm putting on the bike. But
no, he's like, just, take it off. Okay. I'll put it on my shelf. Just right up here. See that? Right there. Yeah. And then in a week, if you still want it back, you can have it. You just come by and pick it up. He's like, trust me, you're going to be free. And I noticed I wasn't doing this all the time. I wasn't like,
right, doing the bob.
Yeah, seriously. Exactly. Okay. Like saying prayers all the time, Right. So I was like, yeah, you're right, man. It was great. I took the blinkers off and everything. And then my buddy Tony's like, hey, why don't you build me a bike like yours? I'm like, I don't have a shop or anything, dude. And he goes, well, how'd you make yours then? And I'm like, good point. Okay. He's like, I'll pay you. And I'm like, seriously? Okay, fine. So I built this bike called the Zombie Chop, which took me like almost 3 years.
Wow.
But I ended up having to move out of the place that I was living.
Yeah.
And then I had to move everything to one shop, and then moved everything to another shop. I moved like 4 shops in like 2 years. So that's why I think it really took longer than
the downside. But the upside is you actually had a shop.
I had friends with shops that were like, that took pity on me, and they're like, yeah, this guy's an idiot. He's trying to build Honda Shadows. Yeah, there's a corner over there you can go work on your shit in.
You can go pee over there. I mean, work over there.
There's a little place back there by the dumpster, you know? So that's kind of how the whole thing started for me. I didn't even like motorcycles to begin with, but then...
Well, let's back up then and find out kind of how... What was your life like growing up? Like, what was life like in the Stiles household? I probably should have done that closer to the mic. What was life like in the Stiles household?
Well, Jared, let me tell you about that. It was quite a peaceful time up until I hit about 12 years old, and then the cat died. So
and everything went to shit.
Wow, where do I start? I mean, up to like 10, 11 years old, it was pretty kosher. Lived in Pleasanton, California.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Familiar.
Pretty freaking big house. My parents were not poor, I guess. I never saw us as being like rich or anything, but
sure.
And then moved to the Dominican Republic, where I spent pretty much an entire year running around the jungle with a machete and a parrot on my shoulder. No joke.
That is awesome. There's nothing more pirate than that, by the way.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And we lived in this little town called Altos de Chavon, which is a replica of a 15th century village on the French Riviera.
Wow.
And it's built on the cliffs of the Chavon River in the south of the Dominican Republic. So...
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's about 7 or 8 miles from Boca de Chavon, which is it's the mouth of the Chavon River.
Okay.
And me and my brother would fish and go in the jungle, and
sounds like a terrible childhood.
I ate ants.
Nice.
I got drunk, I guess. I didn't know, but we had this huge cabana by the pool, and once a month, all the people who live there would get together and have a huge party. And so I drank the punch, of course, because it's punch. I mean, I'm like, it's 12 years old, and punch is punch. I ended up like doing ballet to like Beatles songs or something. Like it's just like I don't even remember. I was doing front flips over chase lounges and is
there or could there be video of this on YouTube?
No, this is back in VHS days, you know.
Darn it.
So and then my grandfather passed away, moved back to California, ended up in Oregon about a year after that, and pretty much grew up the rest of my life in Oregon until like 19. I moved to Vegas, which was a terrible place to live, for me at least. But yeah, my parents got divorced in that period. My mother kind of went a little, ooh. So
did she go ooh before they got divorced, or?
Yeah, it was kind of a long time coming, but you know, just really not the greatest mother in the world. But I went to I was 21 and I'm like, I want to go to therapy for this and make sure like I don't destroy my life because of some weird stuff that I'm stuffing in a box in the back of my heart or something, you know? So,
there's no shame in therapy.
No. It was really, really good experience for me. My brother's actually, doing some counseling stuff too. And he's, you know, cause he had to live with her as well. And, he's on, you know, good terms with her now. I unfortunately can't anymore. It's just I tried and it's just not going to work. not going to work anymore. So my dad, I still talk to my dad. I got a little sister who lives in San Francisco. Okay. But it's not like the closest knit family. We're all kind of spread out, but you know, we all still love and respect each other. So
at what point then, because we talked about Oregon.
Right.
You were in Oregon, and then did you move to Vegas for a stint before California?
Yes. I moved to Vegas with a band. Oregon was like where I pretty much developed all my ideas about mechanics. I built a go-kart.
Nice.
I sold the go-kart to buy my first drum kit.
Awesome.
I came up on a Trail 70. I painted like some ridiculous amount of white fence. I swear it was like Tom Sawyer shit. They're like, cool, here's a golf cart. And I'm like, there's like 20 gallons of paint in the back. You're going to need it all.
Yeah. And you'll need the golf cart. What?
Yeah, they gave me the golf cart so I could like scooch it along the fence while I was painting, you know? I was like 13, 14 years old. I think it was our landlord's house.
I got a visual of you. Basically, paint can here. You're driving like this one way. Paint, dip, drive. All along the fence.
I should have thought of that.
Do a U-turn. Paint, dip, out this side.
Back then it was work hard, not smart. Right.
I don't know if the fence ever would have got painted that way, but it would have been fun.
They were like, yeah, well, if you finish paying this, we'll pay you this amount of money. And I was really into hunting and fishing at the time. And they opened the garage one day. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. What is that? Oh, it's a little Honda Trail 70. So I tore my Achilles tendon trying to kick it over after I painted the fence, of course. But they said I could keep it. So, yeah, my parents let me stay there for like 3 days to paint the fence. It was our landlord's.
Wow.
But yeah, it was kind of cool. They were never home, and I was just painting a fence all day.
Right.
So when you're 14 years old, and you live in the middle of nowhere, and so I developed a really good work ethic as a young child. I had to mow our 13-acre lawn every weekend, which with a push mower. So
what?
Yes.
Oh my God!
I'm not even kidding. I'm super serious about that too.
Now I know why you went to therapy.
So I saved up my money and I bought a freaking riding mower off some old lady out of the newspaper.
That's rad.
And it didn't work, so I had to get it working.
Okay.
So I figure, well, what's the worst that could happen? It's still broke, and then I just have to pay a professional to do it.
Right.
Right. So.
But you got it working.
I got it working, and it was amazing.
That's rad.
Wonderful. I get the whole lawn done like 7 hours. It's great.
Whereas before, it would take you all weekend.
Whereas before, it was like Saturday, 8 a.m., you're mowing the lawn. 8 p.m., you have to stop because it's dark.
Right.
Sunday, 8 a.m., you're still mowing the lawn. Just in time for the sun to go down, you finish.
And you're going back to school.
Exactly.
These weekends suck.
So yes, I did go to Vegas to answer your question. I'm sorry for the rabbit trail there, but moved to Vegas with a band. We did
second worst reason to ever move to.
Oh, you're absolutely. If I could go back and talk to past me, I'd be like, dude, don't be a bitch. This is a bad idea.
Girls and bands, don't move for them.
I have to say, I'm really glad I did.
Yeah.
I made some bad choices, but I'd like to think that if I went back, I'd make a different choice, but a good portion of me says like I wouldn't. I'd make the same choice.
And it was part of your journey to get you where you are now.
Exactly. So we went on tour, got stuck in Oregon, and I was like, well, F this. I'm back in Oregon again. What the fuzz? So they're like, oh, we're going to LA. And I'm like, okay, fine. All right, we're going to LA. So I said, F it all, quit my job, moved to LA, and then it turns out the singer ended up being like a child molester, and he's like, which really sucks because I taught him how to play Misfits songs before he ever knew how to play guitar.
Wow.
He was really good at skating and I was good at playing guitar. Mm-hmm. And so I taught him like guitar stuff and we go skate the parks together. He was a really cool dude. Yeah. But somewhere along the line, like he got a really big head and became a very selfish person. It's very confrontational too.
It's easy to do, especially if you're out on the road.
I mean, that was the thing. We never really went on the road.
It was just at home.
It was pretty much like local, we really didn't even get to play many shows because that's a whole other interview, I'm sure. But that's why I moved back to California, and then I quit the band, and 17 seconds later, everybody else did too. So when they found out, I quit. So and I was riding my bike to work and stuff, and just kept working my way up, and got hired at Affliction. Met a bunch of really cool people there, like John Moss, Joey Bago. Okay. Met some really cool people, but they let me go, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" My brother's like, "Dude, don't be a little girl. Come on, just build bikes." And I was like, "I don't know how to run a shop. What the hell?"
Yeah.
And I was just like in panic mode because I had like $200.
Right.
And I was like, "I can't even pay rent." And he's like, "Dude, just take a deep breath, and you can make this happen." He's like, "What do you need? Does your shop need anything?" I was like, "I freaking need a new welder and a compressor." He goes, "Okay, I'm going to buy you a new welder and a compressor. It's not a gift. It's not a loan. Just take it. I want your business to do well." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah." So that literally, I had $200, a grinder and a drill press. And from that, now I have a web store with almost 100 products on it, a website, and now there's all these dudes popping up who are like this bobber doing shadows that are like,
right.
Which is sad because some of them don't know what they're doing and they're doing dangerous shit.
Yeah.
I mean, competition, I welcome competition because I've been doing this longer than you.
Yeah.
And I'll kick your butt.
Right.
Bring it on.
That's healthy.
Bring it on.
That's healthy.
It's going to be fun, you know? And if somebody else wants to do their own thing with shadows, cool. That's great, you know? But some of these guys, like, their bikes have been trucked into my shop from 4 or 5 states away because they're using residential twist caps for electronics.
What?
They're putting aftermarket exhaust on, intake, not rejetting. They're leaving recalled parts on the bikes. Just because you have a good painter doesn't mean you're a good builder. Just can put that out there.
Yeah.
Because I got a really good painter, which I rarely use because I want people to know that I actually can build something that's decent. You know, I mean, it's not the best out there. There's guys that are way better than me, but
I've seen your stuff. You know, I haven't ridden anything that you've built. Hint, hint.
Welcome to any time.
Awesome, it worked. But I've seen up close. I mean, I saw the bike you gave away. I forget the name of that bike.
GTTC1.
Is that what it was?
Get to the Choppers 1.
Okay. See, I would have never remembered it if it hadn't been named like the Rebel or something.
I was going to call it the Penetrator, but because that was my way of penetrating into the local scene and letting people know, hey, I'm serious about this. This is something I love to do, and hopefully people just take me a little more seriously. I mean, I'm not a super serious dude, but you know.
But that name would have just got shredded.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I did. But it was. I mean, it was cool to be able to, you know, show my respect to the other guys who've been around a lot longer and let people know I'm not here to. That's why I don't build Harleys. One of the big reasons is because I have so many friends that do. Yeah. Like, those guys are good. I'm like, dude, why would I even start trying that? Like, it'd be 20 years before I'm even at that level. Like, okay, come on, Scotty. Like, really, am I going to... No, I'm not building Harleys. I'm going to build Hondas. Just, you know.
Well, one could argue, too... I'm going to say this and sound all intelligent. One can argue that because the market is so flooded... I mean, in the last... I'm going to say within the last like 3 years, because that's how long I've been in and around, you know, the Harley scene out here, or the chopper scene out here. One could say, and I've seen it just start to explode, in that I've asked myself, is it because I just came into it and now I'm fully realizing the size of it, or is it because I came into it and I've watched it kind of grow? And I'm pretty sure it's grown. I've talked to some other people who have been in it and around it for a long time.
Look at Born Free. That's a very good example of... Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's a local show. Right. We don't think of it as that. We're just like, oh, it's this big show, you know, but excuse me, we think of it as a local show, but everybody else in the world sees it as, oh my gosh, Born Free.
It's the premier
It's super cool. Yeah. Now it's like becoming super huge, you know? Right. I mean, Sturgis is about, you know, old titties and tassels and big baggers, and... Now we have Born Free, which is like
yes. Oh no, big saggy titties and
it's all just something. Something's a bag.
There's sacks and bags and saggy titties. Okay. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's Sturgis. Sturgis is fun. Don't get me wrong. It was a blast, and it goes for way too long. If you're an alcoholic, don't go to Sturgis. By the way. But Born Free is more of the. I feel like it's like a teenage version of the Chopper show. You know, there's not... It's like, oh, dude, I want, you know, like, the world is my fucking oyster. Like, all the opportunities are available to me. We can make this happen. Like, it's very fresh. It's very... that sounds really, really lame, but it is super... It's super, super fresh. Yeah. It's not a recycled...
I think that's a way to describe it, other than, you know...
I mean, and there's
so many other words you could use that are probably thrown around, buzzwords all the time. But
honestly, it does kind of bum me out. I've been to every single one since the very first one, which is more of like a garage party than anything else. But it was super cool, really cool. I met some really awesome people every single time I go. I meet amazing people, and this is the first year. This last year is the first year I had a booth.
How'd that work out?
It was great. Yeah. I mean, it's not. Events like that, you're not like, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of money. Right. It's about putting your face out there and just talking to people, making connections, making friends.
It's more of a marketing type thing. I mean, I know I don't want to say that, but that's the business behind it, where you're kind of like, hey, I'm here. Yep. Like Tony from Land Speed. Yep. And he was like, I didn't buy a booth or get a booth so that I could, you know, sell a ton of T-shirts. He's like, that's not how I make my money.
No, I put some T-shirts up. I put some parts out. You know, if someone wants one, here you go, cool. You know, bonus. Right. But the majority of the point of being there is to show people who come out, you know, what's going on with the chopper industry, what you're doing with your shop. Like, talk to people, share with them, bring a bike or two out. You know, it's a big hangout. Yeah. And the corporate sponsor thing kind of bummed me out, but I mean, who doesn't get bummed out when corporate sponsors jump in? Although I understand it from a businessman's point of view. I understand that you do have to have the funding for certain things to happen.
Right.
And I run my shop by myself, and I have no life.
Yeah.
So I understand.
So you can imagine Grant and Mike just being like,
they probably had no life.
Plus they had I know Mike has a family and kids, and
I
Grant was getting married.
even imagine, dude. Like I cannot imagine. Like I'm single.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me running just a shop, taking care of orders, custom builds, custom orders, like emails. I have 261 emails in my inbox right now when I left the shop.
Nice.
So,
and they'll be there tomorrow morning.
Hopefully we'll get it down to like 251. I'm really hoping. But it's, it's stuff like Born Free is like, it's changing the way the industry is moving. And you are right. It is growing. And I've been watching it for probably a little closer, I guess, for the last 7-8 years. And, I mean, Chop Cult popped up.
Yeah.
I was around when Chop Cult just started up. And I just don't have time to get on stuff like that a lot. But I still try to stay connected, and like if people have questions, I'll help out. And I'm not going to say I know everything about a Honda Shadow, but it's been a long time since I've learned something about a Honda Shadow.
Sure.
So
I think that would go without saying. I mean, if you're constantly working on an iPhone 4, like if you're constantly troubleshooting it and taking it apart and putting new parts on it,
you're the iPhone 4 guru.
You're going to become pretty familiar with the iPhone 4. However you refer to yourself, whatever. Like if I don't know anything about iPhone 4s, I'm going to come to a guy who's always looking at them.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I realize that. I know that I have a lot of knowledge that people are going to need and people want. And my whole mission is like, I want other people to get on their bike.
Yeah.
I want people to get out there and enjoy what I enjoy. I want people to be grinning from ear to ear, get that helmet therapy in. I think the world would be a much happier place if everybody got at least a bike ride in, every couple days.
I think it'd be a safer place if all drivers were required to ride motorcycles for like
fully
2
agree.
years.
I fully agree. Absolutely.
There'd be less accidents, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe in the beginning when everyone has to start learning to ride, but yeah.
It's scary. I've been down 8 times now.
Wow.
And I have a few scars, but never broke a bone. Never knocked unconscious. Most of them are pretty like low speed, under 30 miles an hour, but it's scary. But
Still
at the same time, I was like, nope, getting right back on.
Yeah.
Because if I wait a week, it's going to be like, no. It's going to hurt me.
Don't make me push the start button.
Right?
Yep. I've thought about the same thing. I've only had, I've had a couple close calls, but I've had one time early on. It was on the VFR. And I was doing a U-turn. It was the stupidest way you could possibly drop a bike. That's what I did. U-turn, hit some gravel in the center area between a 2-lane.
Where no one ever rides.
And I went, dropped the bike and, hurt my knee. But I picked it up myself, and I was like an 18-year-old kid, picked it up myself and got back on it and rode.
Good.
Because I knew, A, I wasn't going to leave it there, and B, if I didn't get back on right then.
What, are you going to sit there and cry?
Yeah. I did a little bit when I got home. I was 18. It hurt.
Because the bike got damaged, right?
Yeah. I was more pissed about the bike than I was about my knee.
Oh, that's funny.
So, because what I was leading to before with Born Free and, everything kind of exploding is that, the price of, one could argue that the price of sporties has gone down, right? You can pick up a Sportster, a decent Sportster for...
You can get them used for pretty cheap, too.
These little flies around here.
Spectators.
Yeah, spectators.
They're quiet. It's cool.
We have a studio audience today. But yeah, Sportsters have come down in price. I mean, they've always kind of been around like the $4,000 to $5,000 mark for a used sporty. But everyone's running out buying, a shovelhead, or if they can afford it, panhead, or they're buying an Evo and they're, working on it and chopping it out, whatever. Mm-hmm. That also, to me, says, hey, there's this whole other realm, especially when you can build them out looking really killer. There's this whole other realm with Hondas who are super dependable, easy to find parts for. And I've had someone who also works on Hondas tell me that, I talked to him about my Yamaha, and he says, just know it's not a Honda. And that to me speaks volumes. Yeah. I know that when I start getting into it, it's an import, it's metric, and I can probably find parts inexpensive for it, but the internals are going to be different than a Honda, slightly different than a Honda. Yeah,
there's a lot of it. Like I said earlier, there's the engineering superiority is very prevalent. Once you start working on like a Honda Shadow, I'll just say, you start pulling things apart, and everything's very well thought out. Mm-hmm. It's really somebody took the time to think 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead. If I want to do this with the motor, why do I have to do 17 steps before it? Like a lot of the early Yamahas,
right?
Like the XS650 was. Did you know that was the first bike that Yamaha built that was bigger than 350 cc's?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it has somehow become this cult classic motor,
right?
Which is really not a very good motor. I'm just going to out and say it. It's not a great motor.
It's like the American version of the Triumph, right? But not as well made.
Yeah. Kawasaki actually made a bike. I believe it's called like a 650V, which was a copy of like I'm spacing the name, but there's a British bike that literally, you look at the side and you're like, that kind of looks like a Norton. It's an inline twin cylinder 650 cc's. The top looks like a BSA.
Interesting.
And
it was Kawasaki that built that.
Yeah. However, the guy who ran BSA years ago, when they took the bikes out and they're racing them, they get to check out each other's bikes, and like they get to see him. And there's an interview with him saying, "This is by far one of the best engineered bikes I've ever seen." Wow. This motor, he's like, it looks a lot like this, but the engineering is far beyond what we're doing. So, the metrics, again, they got that jump start. While we were still, putzing around and with the Harleys over here, they're building, basically the predecessor to the crotch rockets over in Japan. Right. And they're decades ahead of the curve. So and they still pretty much are. I mean,
well, that's kind of to my point, or what I was trying to get to was with, if you don't have all this money to dump into a sporty, or if maybe you're like me, you're a Sasquatch and you don't fit on a sporty, but you want a bike, you want a chopper, your options are kind of limited. Or you could buy a Honda Shadow, and 650 isn't like the only motor they make. There's larger motors.
750s, 1100s. There's tons.
So you could go with a larger motor. You could take it to TJ and you could have them, stretch out the frame.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff you can do to them, and they're still very comfortable.
Yeah. So and that's, I guess, what I was kind of thinking is that it's good, A, that you're on here, and B, that you're doing what you're doing. Because I like to see, I don't want to say the underdog, because I don't consider you an underdog. You're just not one who's marketed yourself to really put yourself out there to say, like, hey, I build Hondas, like I build Honda choppers and bobbers, like come get your bike built by me.
I probably should, which might actually help my financial situation more.
But you've done a good job with grassrooting what you have. I just turned that into a verb. You've grassrooted yourself to a point where you're able to make a living doing what you love and building quality bikes, and there's something to be said for that. I
have to say, like tonight, I was messaging you earlier. Like I had a little meltdown issue. Customer service is the number one thing, because I didn't start this with a lot of capital. I don't have any financial backing. I had no savings. I had next to no tools. And so it's been kind of a crazy adventure. But what I do have is the ability to offer someone a personal experience. Yeah, I can help them. I can call them on the phone. I can email them. That's something that I'm really proud of, that I've stuck with, is taking care of people. Yeah, and this guy was like bummed out about a shipping issue I've been having, and somehow one of his emails, I missed it. It's my fault.
That was 251 of the 250.
261, actually.
Sorry. So that was the 262nd or 261st. Yeah. That you missed.
Somehow this guy wrote me this long email, and he's just really, bummed out. Right. I was like, dude, call me. Here's my cell phone. Call me. I'll pick up. So he calls me. I said, hey man, honestly, I could say I'm sorry a million times, but how can I affect some sort of recompense for the way you feel? Tell me what you'd like to do, and I'm happy to do it, because at the end of the day, even if you don't want my products anymore, I'd at least like to be able to put forth the effort to make it up to you. Sure. If I made a mistake here, I'm willing to admit it. I'm really sorry for that, but let me show you that I care about you. And at the end of the conversation, the dude's super stoked. His buddy came in. He put me on the phone with his buddy who's just bought a Shadow, and he wants this part and that part. And I'm like, wow, this turned from a really shitty email from someone that was very displeased with a situation, wasn't really, I had no control over it, but it's my business.
Right.
So the fault is mine.
At the end of the day,
I have to take responsibility for that. So it turned into a really great thing, and that's really what I've aimed to do. And I said, dude, I encourage you to leave me a review, whether it's good or bad. You want to share the experience, leave it. I post all my reviews, whether it comes from Yelp or Facebook. They all go on my website now. So I don't have any bad ones that I know of. I haven't found any, but I'm sure they'll come one day.
Wait till Yelp tries to extort you.
Yeah, right. They
do that.
Yeah.
It happened to a barber friend of mine.
Really?
Yeah. And I've heard it from other small local businesses where I don't know if they hire people to do bad reviews, but there are bad reviews, and in order to get them off, you have to pay them to get those removed.
Oh, wow, that's jacked up.
Yeah.
That is so jacked up.
If I'm wrong, so here's an opportunity for you guys to interact. If I'm wrong about Yelp and you work for Yelp or you know someone that does, put an email out there, or send me an email or something and tell me I'm wrong.
Let us know what's up. Yeah, absolutely.
But that's what I've heard, and that's what happened to a couple friends of mine. So
yeah.
So from a parts perspective, because you make all your own parts in-house.
Yeah, I have some people like I don't have a lathe anymore, or I don't have a mill, so I have somebody else make the part for me. But it's all my design. Before I make a part, especially like my velocity stacks, I want to make sure I wasn't like copying someone.
Sure. And
it's kind of an ambiguous part where it's like, well, you can it is always the same, like this bottle. Yeah. If I make a bottle, it's still a freaking bottle, dude.
Right.
But stuff like that. I mean, I'm really trying to focus on parts that never existed before.
Okay.
I made DIY exhaust headers. I mean, they have the bosses and a collar, so you can buy that and build your own exhaust system on your Honda.
Okay.
For 750 and 600. They have them for every Harley out there, every Triumph, but nothing for the Honda Shadows.
Yeah.
So I made those. I designed those. That was a pain in the butt. I've been blessed to meet some really cool guys. Rod at Art to Part. He's a machine shop in Huntington Beach. Big shout out to that guy. He has probably saved me thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. Just helping me and guiding me and just being excited to be a part of my business. And any chance I can, I like to pump that guy because he's a really good dude, really cool to hang out with, and he's a great machinist.
Awesome.
He does a lot of my parts for me as far as like the production runs. I've got a buddy who, John Rockwell, he used to work at West Coast Choppers, really close friend of mine. He helps me out with some welding jobs sometimes.
It's funny how many people, and I've heard this from a few people now, different people I've interviewed, how many people used to work for West Coast Choppers and now have gone on to do other things.
It got really slutty at the end there.
Yeah.
It really did. So, but like, a lot of the parts, I design them and I put them into production, the pipes, stuff like that. Nobody made a bolt kit for the Honda Shadow, so I put a bolt kit out there. Nobody made the resistor caps with stock length ignition wire. So I made the kit and put it on my website, like just filling the voids that are there. Because when I started doing this, there was a massive void. No one had anything.
Sure.
The gas tanks I make, the seats, all the little tiny parts that go on the bike. I've been working on a Springer forever, and it just takes a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money. So
I want to give props to you, by the way, for that coffin tank that I saw that you did recently.
Oh, my bike has a coffin tank on it.
Yeah.
And I get questions about it all the time. Some dude hit me up on Instagram. Instagram is great for my business, by the way. Like, I get so many. That's where like at least 50 to 60% of my business comes from. Yeah. But he's like, "Oh, I found this at a garage sale. Can you make me a tank for my Shadow?" I said, "Ship it out. Let's do it." That's the second one I've ever done. But
the one I saw you working on. And I think
recently,
I think it was also on your bike, right? Your tank.
My tank is the same one he found.
Okay.
It was made by some company out of China.
Okay.
I actually have a really good relationship with Paco.
Okay.
And I contacted them. I've contacted a lot of people about making tanks, and you have to make a die.
Yeah.
To press a tank out, which costs $15,000. Yeah. So. Apparently, they threw the die away about 5 years ago.
Oh, man.
Ron Pa said, I literally remember throwing that away.
Bummer.
I'm like, oh, why?
Tears.
No.
Tears.
If I had called you 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, But yeah, I'm working on the Springer. I've got 3 or 4 more different exhaust designs I'm working with, doing a 2-into-1. What else? A fake oil bag that holds your electronics that has the coolant reservoir attached to it.
I saw that. I saw the one that you did for. It had the Jack Daniels bottle. Was that on the?
That's on the Get the Choppers bike.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
I've done a couple bikes like that. I started doing that a while back, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's a great idea." Now it's pretty popular. You see it everywhere now. I've actually made a few bolt-on like casings for different size bottles. I did a Crystal Skull vodka one a while back. It was just leather with a little metal base, but
that's rad.
Fun stuff. I like the one-off stuff.
Yeah.
Hardtail kit. Doing a hardtail kit for the 750s and the 600s.
Okay.
Just started doing gas tanks for the 750s. Nobody makes really cool gas tanks for those. Nobody makes any gas tanks for them, actually. So.
Right. I was going to say, that seems like it probably replacement tanks, or people will take a sporty, like a just a little 2-gallon.
But if you don't set up the tunnel right, you don't set up the mounting points right, it just looks like, why is there a 3-inch gap between the end of the tank and the frame?
Right.
It's like sitting like sitting like this. There's a big gap,
Yeah.
What's cool about
lower that tunnel and get rid of that gap and get more fuel.
It takes work. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I have jigs for everything now, like fixtures that it's a formula that I can repeat over and over.
Yeah.
So I don't have to charge like $900 to build a freaking tank.
Well, and you don't make mistakes that you would make if you're doing a one-off. Right?
Exactly.
You work through all that process.
Yep. I have some parts I can water jet and have creases or like crease points marked in them. So I need to make a crease here, or put in a brake and bend it there.
Yeah.
Really stoked about getting the hardtails done, because that means I can start offering sissy bar kits.
Awesome.
And different fender kits. That's gonna be really fun. I already got necks made. I have Honda Shadow necks.
Okay.
And within the next 2 years, I hope, I'll have full frames out.
Wow. That'll be awesome. So literally, I go buy a Shadow and I'm like, I'm gonna just go buy this hardtail kit. The whole frame kit.
Yep.
With my fender and everything, and
I want to push it. That is what I dream about. I'm working on a MIG control set, which I'm not releasing any pictures of, because there's so many people out there that have already started copying things I'm doing. It's the
best form of flattery, though, right?
It's quite flattering. I'm like, wow, actually somebody is copying that, saying it's their design. Wow. I didn't think it was that great, but all right, dude, make some money. Cool. But MIG controls, bolt-on stuff. Bolt-on stuff is a huge market. And I talk to a lot of dudes who are great builders. And I've talked to a lot of guys who are builders and have parts lines. Getting to talk with Arlen Ness, I want to say probably 6-7 years ago, was one of the best opportunities I ever had. Because, he has an amazing parts line. Him and his children are never going to want for money.
Sure.
But he also built bikes.
Yeah.
So what he did was he said, if you're just starting out building bikes and stuff, you're not going to want to be 60 years old crawling around your shop floor changing oil and chains and pulling motors in and out of frames. It's for the birds by the time you're 60, man. He's like, build your parts line. It's passive income. It's not necessarily an asset, but it's passive income.
Right.
And what's even better is if you can build a bike, you can now showcase your entire parts line. So there's guys out there that really push their builds, which is great. And I see these guys blowing up their Instagram. They got 1,000 likes,
Yeah.
And it's like on Chop Call, everyone's like sucking their knob, like, oh, that's so sick. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm over here like just super quiet in the back of an industrial complex, busting my hump, making parts.
Sure.
What's going to happen though is a trend is going to change. An economy could change. There's a number of things that exterior influences that no one has any control over that can affect a builder's income or whether a builder is getting bikes made or not. There's a huge dry period, like after the whole chopper phase, like the big, disgusting long bikes with 300 series tires that turning them is like dragging a dead cow.
Yeah.
Handling at slow speeds is a drunk pig on a frozen pond. It's terrible. There you go. There's the barnyard references. So after that, I think there was a big void in the motorcycle industry because nobody really had any money. The bottom fell out of the economy. Everyone was trying to sell off their toys.
Right.
So custom,
that they bought for a hell of a lot of money, and
that they didn't have.
And I've seen them. So a $70,000 chopper, right, going for like 10 grand.
Oh,
that's
try 5.
Man, like, can you imagine? You bought it, like you said, with money that you didn't have. You financed it probably. You eventually paid it off. Maybe you bought it in 2000, and then you paid it off by 2005. And now you've got to sell it because the bottom fell out of the economy.
And you're losing your house. You're living in your grandmother's shed.
You're only going to get $5,000 for it. That's... Man.
Ouch.
But
that's case in point. That's an exterior circumstance that no one has any control over.
Right.
And if you're not prepared for that stuff to happen, your business will go down the tubes.
Sure.
There's so many companies out there that are building choppers that are now they're a 1-man, 2-man show in a garage. Because the economy fell. Did those guys make any parts? Maybe one of them had like a sprocket kit or something.
Yeah.
But they didn't really focus on creating a line that could sustain them. Because people are going to have Honda Shadows for, another 100 years? Who knows?
Yeah.
They're going to be around for a long time.
At least they're built that way.
Exactly my point. So they're going to have those bikes for a while.
Yeah.
They're always going to need cool parts. People are always going to want neat parts. They're always going to want, all my bolts look like crap. They're scuzzy. Cool. Get a stainless bolt kit. Oh, I want to get rid of my controls off my bars. Here, single cable throttle assembly for Honda Shadow.
Yeah.
Booyah. Oh, I want to put a Harley headlight on my Honda Shadow instead of the stock one, which isn't too bad, but you find a cool like triangle RS headlight, or you go to swap meet and you're like, oh my God, look at this crusty cracked glass. That's so cool,
right.
And I made a mount, an adapter for it. So years to come, people are still going to be needing that stuff. And I'm really stoked that I found a way to fill a void in the world that, there's nothing for previously.
So I have a friend of mine.
You have friends. That's good.
I do. I have friends. Actually, at one point, I was really good at making friends. But I do have a friend that moved.
You had kids. It's okay.
Right now, I replaced my friends with my children and my wife, who just puts up with me.
He's got really cool kids, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man. My buddy Joe, who, when I first started looking at bikes, this was like, 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I wanted to get a Harley. I was like, okay, I've waited, 15 years.
Patience.
I'm gonna get a bike. Yeah, it was for the longest time, it was the Night Train. Like, that was the bike I was gonna get, the Harley Night Train.
All black.
Yeah, all black.
Okay, I have a question for you. Why is it that all the Harley bikes are just really, really gay names? Like the Night Rod.
Yeah.
Okay. The Night Train.
Yeah.
The Fat Bob.
Yep.
The Fat Boy. I mean, is this like a gay club that's naming the bikes, or what? Are they hiring the local Golden Pole to a coalition to name the Harley bikes? I don't get it.
I take solace in the fact that mine is a deuce, right?
Okay. Come on.
Decent.
Come on.
That's a manly thing. Yeah,
Deuce,
I go and I drop a deuce. In this case, I go and I haven't dropped the deuce, thank God, but I get and ride on the deuce. So that's, I ride.
It's a log ride.
So awesome.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's perfect.
That has always boggled my mind. Why would you call it the Night Rod?
Yeah, because
that sounds like something you're being raped by in an alley.
Yeah.
And then he pulled out the Night Rod.
And then I never walked again.
Yes, well, I believe your attacker goes by the name the Nightster. Right. He's co-hosts with Fat Bob. Do you know him? It's like, oh God, this is just like a horrible gay crime syndicate.
In the early days, they were well named. Flathead, right? Or before that, you just had the basic, JD motor or whatever, JD style motor. Yeah. So you had the Flathead, then you had
or
Knucklehead.
Model K or something. Yeah.
Panhead, then you had a shovel.
Yeah, cool.
Sportsters, obviously.
That's cool.
Right.
Or a Knucklehead, like that just sounds like tough, you know?
And then you had Super Glide or Wide Glide. Like
that started getting really gay. It's Wide Glide? Well, we all know what a Wide Glide is. Right. It's like a moped. Something you ride you don't want to tell your friends about.
I was thinking like really wide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The flags.
Yeah. So in order to not be hated, I forget where I was going with that.
You really wanted a Harley. You waited like 15 years.
So my buddy Joe has this 650 Shadow. And
what year? Do you remember?
2003?
600.
600?
Mm-hmm. Okay. They never made a 650 in 2003. The 650 was a very short-lived
When was
Shadow.
the 750?
750? Oh, they had 750s in the 80s.
So maybe it was a 750? I don't know. Joe can correct me if I'm wrong. When this podcast comes out, Joe, you get on Instagram and you tell me I'm wrong. So I wanted to buy his bike because he wanted to sell it, and he of course wanted to get a
Harley Dangerous.
Yeah, he wanted to get a Harley Dangerous. I think he wanted to ride one of the street glides. I'm pretty sure that's what he wants. That's what he has now. So anyway,
again, that's the name
terrible.
of the hooker, right?
Right.
She's a street glide. They're awesome.
I bet you this will be the most downloaded, most commented on podcast ever.
Sweet. That's awesome.
So I was going to buy this bike from him, and I just kept thinking, the way he had it set up, he had these huge apes on it. I mean, they were like way above his head. He had it basically set up like an East Los Angeles kind of lowrider, right? And it was a cool looking bike.
Sure.
And I just kept thinking, like, I can't live with myself riding a Honda.
You're not cholo enough.
No, well, it was that, and I wanted to. Of course, when I first came in, I was like everybody else. I'm like, oh, those bikes on Suns.
Pure. Dude, that's all anyone wants now.
I just want T-bars and a little bit of, a little Nest.
Quarter fairing, 12-inch dry-as T-bars.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Brush guards, all black, everything all day.
Because I'll look like a badass no matter what I'm wearing. I could be wearing dolphin shorts and like high, colored football socks. And
until you go riding on Sunday and you look just the same as everybody else.
And everybody else, that's right. That's right. So I got past that phase, but and I went. Thank you. A little therapy. I turned some pages of the internet and realized, I really like mid to late '60s choppers. That's
you let your browser reload.
I did. And I went, oh, thank God, there's better bikes out there. And no disrespect to anybody who rides a Dyna. I mean,
actually, I know one of the guys who built the bikes for Sons of Anarchy. And I don't think anybody who built them would think, oh, it's going to start a whole trend.
Yeah.
Just he's told an artistic thing to do. Okay, he's going to do it.
He took inspiration, from what I understand, from like the early, Frisco bikes, the bikes that were.
There's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a good builder, and makes good bikes. It just so happens that all these people are coming out of the woodwork. They watch the show. Now they want to be Billy Badass, and they go buy a Dyna, and
first they get the shirt.
And then they wear the SOA hoodie. I'm like, dude,
and they wear the white sneakers.
Yeah.
Look, it's a drama. I get it. I love it. I watch it every week.
I can't stand it.
I just watched the episode today, actually, while I was working. It was minimized over here, and I was working away. And I love the show. I think it's great. I think it's drama, motorcycles, there's violence.
Soap opera for men.
It's exactly it.
Yeah.
No more SOA. Okay. So I remember thinking about this bike and just thinking, I really want that bike, but at the same time, I want a Harley. Yeah. So what do I do? But I remember thinking to myself, where did you get all these cool parts for this Honda? Like, I didn't really know much about, bikes at that time as far as like from bolt-on stuff or whatever, but his bike was pretty rad. And I know he didn't, he did some of the stuff himself, but it wasn't like he took it to a shop and said, hey, make this look like an East Los Angeles lowrider. That just didn't happen. He bought the bars and everything else was kind of bolt-on.
Yeah.
But I had never seen a Honda Shadow look that cool prior to,
you being introduced to that bike.
Yeah. And so ever since then, I just always remember thinking, I'd build a little Honda bobber. That'd be cool. And then I met Josh Schroeder from Scoundrel Clothing, and he rides a little Honda bobber that he built. And I mean, it's nothing like super special. It's not. I wouldn't put it in the same genre as your bikes, but he did it himself.
Sure.
And the thing's still riding to this day, and it's been down twice. So.
Do you know Booze Bomber?
Yeah.
Yeah, he rides he's got I think it's a 750.
Okay.
He's got a Honda. His buddy Saint has one too.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a couple people that have them. I mean, and it's getting more and more popular. I used to be able to pick a used one up for like $1,200.
Now because people are getting them.
Now you go on Craigslist and you see like someone chopped the fender off.
Call it a bobber.
Still has a stock seat and it has stock bars. And they cut the mufflers off, which is really crappy because most people don't know the front exhaust pipe has an inner pipe.
Yep.
Tube, has an inner tube on there.
It's in case that outer goes flat. Then it has an inner. No, I'm sorry.
And they're two different sizes. The front and the rear exhaust pipes are two different sizes.
I didn't know that.
So the front one, if you cut the muffler off, the inner tube rattles around inside, and up at the head, it rips itself free. Yeah. So a lot of guys will heat wrap them, and then increases the heat up at the top, and then the inside rips free, and then your exhaust sounds really weird. It's like, what is that? And you're like, trying to replicate the sound. I only know this because it happened to me about 7 years ago.
Right.
I was that idiot.
Right.
And so now I try to tell people, don't do that. Oh, it's going to be open pipes. So I'm like, it not as good as you think it is,
yeah.
you know? And then you find like these random Mexichrome dump outs that people like screw on, and it's all lumpy and shitty looking. And guys are selling this, trying to sell this stuff on Craigslist for like $5,000.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, are you delusional? Brand new. These were 42.
Yeah.
Off the lot with 0 miles.
It's custom now, bro.
It's not. No, you took off like $400 worth of shit that I could have sold if he was still stock.
Right.
So, you know, it's really interesting how the motorcycle industry has changed because of, you know, I mean, certain shows and
because everybody's a garage builder nowadays. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate mail for that, but it's okay to tinker on your own stuff.
I think it's great. Honestly, I mean, a lot of people might poo-poo it, but like I was telling you about the electrical guys before, like, dude, be careful with your electrical. You could set yourself on fire. Yeah. And they're like, oh, no, it's cool. I know. So my dad's electrician, lineman, pipe fitter. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. All right. I'm just trying to help you out.
4 months later.
You know, I get a text. Bike is dead. I'm like, need a new battery or what do you mean?
No, it's
and
dead.
I get a picture immediately afterward of a ash gray pile with a motor, and I'm like, oh, but hey, the kickstand still works. Hey, the bars are all wompy, like there's no wheels.
Yeah.
And I built this guy a beautiful set of pipes, just big, long, gorgeous pipes. And he already chopped his bike. So the challenge was figuring out where to mount these on a frame that I didn't have.
Yeah.
So I figured out a mounting system to where he could adjust it, because I knew if he's going to do this to his bike, it's got to be within this range.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere else with it. So I was really stoked on that, and they just sounded amazing. And a few months down the road, toast. So, but I do encourage guys to work on their own stuff, you know?
Sure.
If you ask me how I built something or what specs it is, no, I'm not going to tell you that. Do you know how long I freaking worked on that?
Yeah.
Do you know how much money I had to dump into that to make the first one? Like, no.
Yeah.
Make it yourself. I'm not going to give that away. Like, you get emails, how do I hardtail my bike? Chop it and put things in it.
2 words. The internet.
Yeah, there's a guy named Ola Stenegard, right? Okay. And I believe he's like an engineer for BMW Motorrad. He designs like motorcycles for them or something. He said something in an interview on, is it Bike XC or Moto XC? I always get it screwed up. It's a little website.
Bike XF, yeah.
That's it, yeah. And he said, I don't believe there's any bike out there that can't be made awesome with a torch and a grinder.
Sure.
And it's so true. You know, you got a bike like, well, that's how I started.
Yeah.
It was super freaking fugly. It was awful. This is awful, like period blood. They called it cherry, but it was period blood red. And you say potato, I say tomato, you know? So that's how it starts. And a lot of people, especially because the economy is now starting to come back up, a lot of people still aren't super well off. But you can go pick up a grinder at Harbor Freight, you know?
$12 if you have the coupon. Just saying.
Boom! Right there.
It may not last 6 years, but, you know.
Make sure to cover your gas tank. Don't blow yourself up, you know?
For God's sake, wear a freaking protection shield of some kind.
Glasses! Gloves!
Just something. I've seen so many pictures, internet pictures of grinder discs from Harbor Freight, like in the chin, on the neck, in the knee.
Do you know Jordan Hamilton?
Jordan.
He's kind of a shorter dude, super punk rock.
No.
One of my best friends. I love that guy. He's actually helped me out a lot with building bikes and give me a lot of good advice. But he had a shop called Originals by Jordan Hamilton.
Okay.
He kind of got into real estate now, but he's missing a finger.
Because of a grinder?
A grinder.
Yeah.
And people always give me crap like, why are you wearing your safety glass? I'm like, dude, I had a shard of metal in my eye a few years ago. For 4 days, I did not sleep. And they had to drill it out of my eye.
Brutal.
I was so tired, I went outside of the building, and there was grass in the shade. I laid down. I fell asleep. I didn't wake up till like 10 o'clock at night, and the security guard's like, hey, man, you can't sleep here. I'm like, sorry, I haven't slept in 4 days. I just had a shard of metal drilled out of my eye. I felt so good.
He's looking at you like...
He's like...
Where'd you put the bottle?
Right? Yeah. The doctor's like, you can't close your eyes. This will rip your eyelid off. I'm like...
Yeah.
Okay. So I had to sit there and do this, and focus on the corner of the room, and my whole vision is just going while he's like drilling in a hole in my eye.
Oh, brutal.
But it was so good. I felt amazing after. I was like, there's a hole in my eye, huh? And he goes, yeah, there's actually a little divot out of your cornea. So, dude, even when I wear safety glasses, I have eye washes. I blow through those things.
Yeah.
Because I feel something in there. It's a fucking eyelash, it turns out to be, but I don't care. I'm blasting it out of there.
You're not getting drilled on again.
No, I don't have money for that anymore. I don't have insurance.
Right.
So I think the garage building thing's cool, and I actually build a lot of parts that are aimed towards guys like that, like the do-it-yourself exhaust kits.
Yeah.
I sell tubing on my website for exhaust.
That's rad.
I sell the bends. You can get 4 degree radius, 3 degree, 2 or 3 inch, 2.5, 2, like 45s, 90s. I'll sell you a length of 6 feet if you want. Like, I'm all about that. You know,
rad.
I mean, if anything,
encouraging the next generation.
Yeah, and even, I mean, it's like, okay, but you're not really selling any major parts. You're just helping someone else build their own bike. Yeah, but it's developing a good relationship. You know, now they know I'm a cool dude, and I'm down with them building their own thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many emails, texts, calls, Facebook messages, statuses I get tagged in about how to fix shit on people's bikes.
Sure.
So that keeps me pretty busy.
Yeah.
And that kind of proves to me, like, dude, keep putting out stuff that people can do themselves. It's really, really important. And it's not going to be a bad thing for your business.
I think you could even, look at, I'm going to promote them because I think what they're doing is a good thing.
Do it.
Look at what Builtwell's done. Look at what Lowbrow's done, and there's other places that do it too. Maybe not as big, but Lowbrow, is taken parts from different makers, different fabricators, and brought it to a site where they can purchase it.
They revolutionized the online shopping experience, I think, for motorcycles.
Sure, absolutely.
They're part of the entire evolution of the past decade.
Yeah.
I think a huge part of it, actually.
And what they're doing, I mean, both those companies, what they're doing is working, where, I can go, if I have a stock Sportster or even a stock Big Twin, I can go there and buy everything I need to make my own chopper.
Yep.
I'm going to have to learn how to put those things on and how to weld and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I could do it. Anybody can really do it.
Yeah. How well you do it is a whole other can of worms.
You're going to learn. Let's just put it that way. You'll learn. I mean,
exactly.
Everybody learns, right? And so, but there's something about, especially I think in a society today where we're at, where as men, most of us go to work in an office, in a cube. We don't work with our hands. We're not constantly creating something or doing something that gives us a result like we used to, farming, building, things like that. There are a lot of the dudes that still do that, construction, electrician, plumbers, whatever. But a majority, I think, of even a lot of people who listen to this podcast, they may not have jobs that allow them to do physical things.
Yeah.
And so when they're in the garage and they get their shipment of parts, I mean, that's a great male day.
I think, honestly, feminism is a good thing. It promotes equality between the sexes, but there is an extreme element of that has. A friend of mine posted on Facebook saying, "Why? Since when? What'd she say? Since when did every man become a pussy?" And I said, "Since feminism sunk its claws into everything that is man."
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "Yep." It's not the actual. When you really get down to it, feminism has nothing to do. It shouldn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
Equality between the sexes has nothing to do with that. But what's happened is the extremist element of that has been pushed really hard. So you had the whole, metro thing happening a couple years ago. And the problem is women are like, I'm super dependent. I do my own thing. I don't need a man to support me. Right. So men are like, cool, fuck it. I don't have to do shit.
I'm out.
I don't need to be a breadwinner. I can be a lazy asshole and play video games all day.
Right.
So and
I'm going to wear skinny jeans.
We have bitchified men.
Right.
So men don't have a real reason to need to be a fucking man.
Yeah.
And, be a man. It doesn't mean you're a tyrant or a misogynist or an abusive asshole. It means you're a man. Okay. And a woman can be a woman. Like, she can still have a job and stuff. It's great. But the way the extremist element of feminism got pushed really hard for a while was, I think it came out in social media. It came out in TV shows and radio shows and talk shows and popular media, pop culture, period, pushed it hard.
Right.
And, a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon, but they failed to realize the repercussions of that is 10 years from now, every man you find doesn't know how to do his own laundry, cook his own food, doesn't know how to fix his own bike, can't change a freaking flat tire, doesn't know what a spark plug is or where to find them. So I'm trying by offering those parts that people can work on and by giving people this advice for free over the phone. All I ask is I say, hey, if I'm going to help you over the phone or email, leave me a review on Yelp. Yeah. Or on my Facebook. Just say, TJ sucks dick for quarters. I don't care. Whatever it is, positive or negative, I'll take it. But that enables me to like help people and get something in return for my time. But for me, I feel like that's part of me helping to de-bitchify the men of America. Like, yeah, you can do this, dude. It's not that hard. Here, I'll text you a diagram. I've done this numerous times. I'm just going to drop a diagram really quick on this tube services thing. Okay, there you go. Text it to you. You know, and it's encouraging guys to go out, and even women too, to go in their garage and build something, get hands on. You know, there's a really great meme floating around that says the future belongs to those of us who aren't afraid to get our hands dirty. Yeah. So, and I think it's really good for not only the mind but the soul. Jeff Holt actually wrote a really great piece in Street Chopper. I think it's the one where there's like a Don and Fawn's pink pan head is on the front. Okay. He wrote a whole piece about, you know, when your man is out in the garage wrenching on his stuff, trying to fit parts from 60 years that were made 60 years apart, make them fit together. You know, it's not he's trying to get away from everybody or anything. He puts it much more eloquently than I have. But it's a really great piece about, you know, that's a really important part of a man's life, or even some women love doing that. Going out in the garage and spending time with that machine. It's a journey. It's something you can fall in love with over and over and over again. I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about like... It's
the same thing that pushes people, I'm going to say people, regardless of man or woman, to play with Legos, to play with an erector set, to play with Lincoln Logs, like when you were a kid, right?
Encouraging that creativity and understanding that, you know, not only is it a motorcycle where you're on the road and there's nothing but you and your bike. That's like an exposed motor. You're strapped to this dangerous thing with a tank of explosive fuel in front of you.
It's pretty insane when you think about it.
Going 80 miles an hour down the 91.
Right.
And somehow it's soothing.
Yeah.
Somehow, like, all your worries go away. No one's there to yell at you or talk to you. I mean, yeah, you got to deal with drivers, but not only is there that freedom element and that awesome, like, badass on a motorcycle element, but you have the whole element of, like, I had a creative say in this. Like, I put a part of me into this thing. I mean, you can do the same with cars, but I think a motorcycle is so much more intimate because it wasn't ever really meant for like two people. It's more of a solo vehicle. Yeah. You know, you can always king queen seats, ride two up. That's fine, but it's really was intended for a single person to ride.
Sure.
You know, one guy on there, one girl on there. And that's, you know, I'm hoping in the next, 15, 20 years that more and more people are going to start doing their own things and pulling away from big corporations. And, they'll be a little more self-sufficient. And
one can hope.
You don't have to call a guy to fix the pump in your washing machine. Okay. It's like 20 minutes.
It's funny you should mention
$10. Why?
Because we had a leak in our washing machine. And I've never worked on a washing machine before. First thing I did, went to YouTube. 80 series Kenmore.
Right.
YouTube. Okay, look. How to remove cabinet from 80 series. Okay, cool. Screws. Cool. Went out in the garage, grabbed my tools, pulled the whole cabinet off. Okay, now I need to look for a leak. I know how to look for leaks. Grab a flashlight.
The motorcycle taught you that.
Feel all the hoses. There's wetness there. I couldn't find anything. But up at the top, I found a leaking where the inlet comes in from your cold and hot water. There's like some control modules and stuff there. And basically there's a little tube that runs up and over and dumps water into your barrel, essentially, the big tub. And right at the top, those little clips that look like a claw, there's like two and then one in the middle and they wrap around a hose.
Yeah.
I don't know what those are called. They don't come off easy. You gotta like pinch them with a pair of pliers and try to
and then try to finagle them up the hose.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this one looked like it had the whole hose was just rusted and corroded. And I thought, you know what? That's probably where the water's coming from. So I looked online, parts like $10, $15, depending on who you buy it from, plus another 10 for shipping. And I thought, told my wife, what's my wife say? Go down to the hardware store, just buy some tubing. And, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, it's bent and it's made this certain way. So I ended up going down to the hardware store, buy some, pressure the tubing that'll handle pressure. And
right.
Some hose clamps, put it on there, put it all back together, ran a load, didn't leak. And I was like, yay me.
See, YouTube is great, but you got to be careful. Like, I had a kid come to my shop with cables cut. He cut the ferrules off the cables.
What?
He's like, yeah, can you fix these? I'm like, no. What did you do? Were you trying to salvage the cable inside to recycle, or
I don't get it. Them.
Yeah, he got bigger bars but needed shorter cables, which he actually ended up needing like 8 more inches. But he said, yeah, I watched a YouTube video, and a guy took I watched the YouTube video. The guy takes a live round, like a bullet. Let's say it's a bullet, over a candle and burns the lead out of it.
What?
Yep, regular solder's not strong enough to hold the ferrule on the steel cable. I'm like, that's a friggin' live round, redneck.
Right. Well, at least he was holding it. So if it went off, he was holding the shell.
Would have blown a hole in his hand.
Right.
And his face, too, probably.
Depending on which way.
Great YouTube video, right?
Right.
But he's burning a bullet.
Wow.
So there's, and that's the only downside of like a lot of these shops that are popping up, like such and such bobbers or such and such this, like they're giving out, I'm seeing these people online on forums or groups giving out people really bad information.
Sure.
That is incorrect, that's unsafe, that's, I mean, I hope I never get accused of just talking to someone just to try and sell shit.
Right.
Because I spent a lot of years in sales, but I really work hard to not just be a salesman. Mm-hmm. I am a walking advertisement for my shop, but someone needs something, let me help you.
Sure.
You know, if my product's going to help you, I'll suggest it. But if there's also another way, I will let you know. You know, it's like the YouTube is a great tool for people to use, especially home builders and stuff. But there's a lot of misinformation.
You gotta use the rule of you bring up one video, watch about 6 of them, and if the consensus is you do it this way, then
the common denominator. You want the common denominator there. Yeah.
It might be the way to do it.
Use your own common sense.
Yeah.
And find the common denominator of the 75 videos on how to change your brake fluid.
Right.
And you'll probably come up with a good one.
Yeah.
So
that's the truth. I think that's the world we live in, the digital world we live in nowadays. But I wanted to ask you if you had. So I'm going to switch this up a little bit because I usually I asked 2 questions, but with you, I'm going to ask 1 question.
Oh, goody.
If there was one thing that you could make happen, let's say for 2015, if there's one thing you could make happen, what would it be?
In what aspect?
You know, I'm just going to leave it however you interpret it.
How I want. Wow. Damn, I was not prepared for this. Shoot.
Because there's so many different ways you could go, right?
Yeah. I mean, the 2 major focuses of my life, I mean, first and foremost is my shop. Now, right next to that is my band. In 2015, I would like to see the full implementation of systems installed in my business that are going to allow me to continue growing and to scale beyond what I'm hoping for. So far, every single year I've passed my goal for my 3-year, 5-year, 10-year, 2 whatever. Every year I have goals. Every single year I've blown them out of the water, which has been really good. But I mean, the next year I really hope to implement some better systems as far as like my web store, my website. I really want to bring those together to be one whole entity. I want to have more interaction with customers online. I'd hope to double my product line by the end of 2015. So I hope to have 200 products.
Awesome.
So it's a lofty goal, but so far the goals that I have set have been attained, and I have surprised myself. But it's a really good surprise, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. If you had, how do I want to word this?
Words are hard.
They are hard. Because I want to make sure I articulate it so as not to give away anything. But if you got a phone call from Chris Huber asking if you want to be a part of Born Free 7, let's say, for this coming year, what do you think your answer would be?
Is that even a question?
It is. Because there's a lot that goes along with it, right? I mean...
Yeah. I mean, I got to build a whole bike.
Yeah.
And I'd say absolutely yes. Without a shadow of a doubt. I wouldn't skip a beat.
Okay. Awesome.
I would say absolutely. If you
listen to this, Chris, I'm recommending...
That would blow my mind, and I'd probably need to take a nap.
Yeah.
But or go take a bike ride or something. I mean, that would be really cool. I would love to do that, because when I started doing this, I really, and this is still in my heart. Mm-hmm. I want to change the world. That sounds kind of gay, but I do. And I want to change the way the world sees Honda Shadows. And I want to change the entire industry.
Well, there's a saying about, there's a couple sayings. I'm sure there's lots of sayings out there. This saying...
Don't eat cheese on Tuesdays.
Right. A prophet's never honored in his own land.
Yeah.
Right? There's that one. That's the non-positive encouragement. Then there's the encouragement that, if you want to change the world, you start with yourself. And I interpret that as to change it locally, even. Yeah. And it seems like you've already done that. I mean, just from what I've seen, and granted, it's on social media, but I've been to your event, or at least one of the events. Mm-hmm. I haven't been to your shop yet, which I'd love to come by sometime.
Anytime, dude.
But you can see kind of the splash from all that, from the event, from what you're doing online, and I think that should be an encouragement for sure.
It is. It really is. I mean, and first and foremost, I had a conversation with my friends. I was like, we were talking about like, what if you had $1 million, mm-hmm. And one of the things I brought up was like, I always worry about like, what if I had a lot of money? Mm-hmm. I don't want to be a dick.
Right.
Like, dude, so many people get money and they're like total dicks.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Dickhead. Like now you just have 2 letters in front of your name, but it's still Dickhead. Like, so, I mean, every day I have things written on the walls around my shop. I'm an Eagle Scout. It sounds strange, I suppose, awesome. But
it's not strange.
A lot of the stuff that I learned as a kid and in the past years, even from mentors of mine, people I look up to, some of my heroes have now become my peers.
Yeah,
which is really cool. But at the same time, staying humble. A lot of people say, grind hard, stay humble, but then they become stuck-up pieces of shit.
Right. Have I given you my wisdom? Grind hard, stay humble. That's so humble of you to tell me that.
Eat a dick.
Yeah.
Go home.
In fact, here's a bag of them.
Here's a satchel. I mean, when people say bag, is it like baguette sticking out of it, or is it like meat packaging? Or I always wondered.
I always thought just like a bag, but it's probably a sack is big.
A sack.
A sack.
It's a dirty, moist sack. It's distasteful. So I just
bad visuals.
It is.
Bad visuals.
I've been really blessed to have a lot of really cool people in my life. Mm-hmm. I would not be anywhere where I am without the kindness, the grace, the friendship of my friends. I'm surrounded by things in my shop that people were like, "Oh, you need this? Well, here, you can have my tubing notcher." I'm like, "That's a JD squared tubing notcher, man." Yeah. I'm done with the race truck. I don't need it anymore. I'm like, okay, sure, and stuff like that. Having an overwhelming sense of gratitude on a daily basis, I think, has allowed me to remember, dude, I'm just a dude doing something I love. And just because I want to change the world doesn't mean I'm any better than anybody else. I mean, sure. Okay, maybe I am. No, I'm just kidding.
You just have the passion to do it.
Yeah, and I try to maintain, a foundation for my business and myself, of trust, loyalty, honor, respect. Mm-hmm. I treat every customer as I would a friend. I went to Keith Moore's memorial. He used to run Moore Cycle in Fullerton, Triumph, BSA shop. Mm-hmm. That dude literally would cough and ashes would fly out of his mouth. It was crazy.
Wow.
But he passed away in his shop, Mm. But some of the things people had to say about him really struck a chord with me. People said, that he treated everybody like a friend. Hmm. And when you're dead and you're gone, all you owned is garbage. Mm-hmm. It basically people fight over it or whatever, or the government repossesses it. I don't know. Basically, it doesn't matter anymore.
Right. All
that matters is how you treated people and the impressions you left upon other souls.
Right.
So I know that. And it doesn't mean I have to be all touchy-feely all the time or anything, but I think it's important to give gratitude to people who have done good things for you.
Yeah.
I think it's important to show respect to people. I think it's important to say what you're trying to say to somebody. You know, if I talk to somebody who's doing something similar, say, hey, I've been building this part, but I really want to make sure I'm not stepping on your toes. Like if this is something that would, you know, you think is encroaching on your profits or your ability to create an income, let me know. I haven't been around for a long time, and I think it's important to give credit where it's due and pay your dues.
Sure.
But like I said, the cornerstones of what I'm doing is 12 things.
Yeah.
A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. So
awesome.
All that goes into what I built my business on. So,
I had the pleasure.
And my personal character.
I've seen that. I mean, I've seen that in the couple times I've met you.
Cool. That's awesome. That's really encouraging.
That really speaks volumes to me when I can see it in someone's character, even within just like a few meetings.
That's really cool. Thank you.
I also had the pleasure of seeing your band play.
Oh, cool.
I can't remember when. I think it was about a year ago.
Shovels and Shivs?
Yeah.
Was that it? Or was
Spaghetti Monsters.
Gardening Implements and Cutlery? That was
yes. I'm sure you guys get all the fun, names.
Yeah. That's just for the people watching this, listeners. I'm in a band called Spades and Blades. It's like progressive metalcore. It's pretty heavy. It's loud. Your grandma probably would hate it. Your girlfriend might like it, but it's fun. I love it.
It was a great show. I got to see them.
Thank you.
It was at what's that place in Fullerton near the Slide Bar?
Near the Slide Bar?
Is it the Slide Bar?
Slide Bar is like the downtown.
It's Fullerton one. It's like long bar inside, long bar outside.
Yep.
Okay.
Slide Bar.
Yeah, Slide Bar. So I always think Slide Bar is that piano place, but that's something else. It's like the dueling pianos.
That was shut down because of underage drinking.
Oh.
The buckets of Corona? Yeah.
So there's that.
I was there when the cops came in.
That's awesome. I just kept thinking, dueling pianos. I love piano, but I don't think I would love dueling pianos.
It was cool.
Like live. Cool. Was it cool?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I missed out on that.
That's all right. You saw Spades and Blades show though, so
and that was good.
Your life
for
is
me.
complete.
I'm actually a really snobby music critic, and
cool.
And
That's
seeing
good.
you guys play live, and I took a bunch of pictures and stuff, and I was pretty impressed, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate
what's your website for the band again?
It's spadesandblades.com. Spadesandblades.com. And we're actually going on tour in December.
Awesome. Where are you going?
All across the U.S. I mean, we're not hitting the Eastern Seaboard. It's wintertime, so November 28th, I believe it is, we're doing the Whiskey.
Okay.
Playing at the Whiskey with Virulent, Solus Deus, I think another band.
Really? I know somebody in that band.
I know a couple people from Solus Deus.
Jeremy, the singer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jay.
I know him. Yep, Jay.
Yep.
He's married to Colette.
Yep. He's a good dude. G-Rock days.
Yeah.
Still films for G-Rock too.
Does he really?
Yep.
He probably still has the tapes then from when we
archives.
We did a thing, and then I asked him to come in pre-production for our studio thing and shot a bunch of videos. So
that's awesome.
Jay, if you still have the tapes, I'd be interested in having them.
T's got to watch this.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're doing Whiskey, Vegas, San Diego. We're playing Brick by Brick.
Okay.
And then we go out across the U.S. We got a bunch of different dates, and then on December 14th, which is also my birthday,
awesome.
We're playing in Huntington Beach.
Okay.
At a place called, I think it's called Fusion, but it's on Edinger and Gothard. There used to be like Endless Food and Fun or whatever, which sounds like a fat kid's dream.
I was thinking,
yeah.
Did it shut down?
Because it didn't make any money. But now they've remodeled it. It's freaking amazing. There's like a bar in there now. They're doing comedy clubs. They have a nice stage, good sound reinforcement. So we're playing it's my birthday. We're doing a birthday shindig and our last show of the tour there. So I'll probably smell awful, be exhausted, and it'll be great.
I was going to say, that sounds like the perfect gig. Tour.
Right? And then pass out for 3 days straight.
Right. This time with no metal in your eye.
Yeah. Actually, that, you know what? I got glow stick in my eye once. I was out in the desert
really?
and I cut a glow stick open. I didn't know they were like pressurized, but the metal was actually worse than glow stick.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be so weird if the glow stick stuff didn't burn your eyes.
It glowed.
But you could put it in your eyes and then just be like, bah! And like freak the crap out of people.
It was excruciating.
Was it really painful?
I was crying for hours. Serious.
Tears are glowing.
Yeah, my whole face had glowy stuff all over it, and then like inside, like when I opened my eyes, around the edges of my eyelids was where it was like brightest because it collected there. You know.
That sucks. Were you doing this bit like?
No, I actually cut it open with a freaking knife.
Okay.
I was gonna pour it on a rocker. I don't know. We had all been drinking a lot, and we were in the middle of the freaking desert. We were out by Bismarck Mine.
Okay.
Yeah, that was.
Sounds like a great story.
Sometimes you make really great choices in life.
Sometimes you don't.
I used to try to think about my choices, but then I was just like, yeah, let's cut this open. Ah!
That's so awesome. I was just thinking while you're saying that, I wonder if anybody tried to shoot one. That would be awesome.
Yeah, you shoot them.
Just put them out there and you can glow in and just pow.
With a 22.
Yeah. That's good fun.
Yeah, it's really hard to do at night. Like,
oh, sure.
You know, especially if it's far away, but it's cool for about 10 seconds. Right?
Night scope.
It's cool for about 10 seconds, then it's like, okay, we're done with this.
Awesome. Well, TJ, thanks for being on Chopper Prophets.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. That was awesome. I'm stoked.
Awesome to have you on here. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We'll catch up with you soon.